Let's just. Okay, great. Uh, am I okay? Am I okay?
Okay.
Okay, great. So, should I address you as Lama, Marut?
Lama Marut or Venerable Marut or Marut. Any one of those. Venerable Marut's like what you say to a monk. Lama Marut is, I don't know, nice.
Lama
Professional.
Marut. Okay. Well, welcome to the National Critics Choice at Hyatt, and I'm Robin Stienberg. I'm here with Mr. Lama Marut here in Singapore, and he has his new book coming up in stores worldwide, especially in Singapore. Is Spiritual Renegade Guide to the Good Life, and this is the book that you should look out for by all stores. And I have some questions for you, Lama Marut, and that is, what exactly living a good life is all about? I mean, how did you actually discover happiness and this revelation to where you stand today?
Well, I think, living a good life has a kind of a double entendre. Obviously it means living a happy life, a life of contentment, with satisfying relationships, with, with enough money, enough, of the worldly kinds of, material things, but also, peace of mind. So the good life in that sense. But the good life in that sense comes from the good life in the other sense, which is to live a moral life, to live a life where, you're treating other people as you would have them treat you, and creating what we call in the Buddhist tradition, Hindu traditions, karma, the right karma for having the kind of good life in the second sense.
And having to live a good life, may I ask, well, why do you choose to give up everything that you have, and becoming a monk? I mean, was it a revelation, or was it some kind of spiritual dilemma?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had lived a whole life. I had, had a long career and very successful career in the academic world. I had a family life. I had children in 2 different marriages, and so I had done all of that. I had done the worldly life, and although I have no regrets about it, and it was fine as far as it went, it wasn't bringing me the deep-seated happiness that I was really looking for. So, about 14 years ago now, I got very serious about a spiritual life and trying to learn the secrets of a more deep-seated, a deeper kind of understanding of happiness than the happiness that those other kinds of things can afford. And I do afford happiness. There's nothing wrong with having a family or relationships or a profession or money or things. There's nothing wrong with them. They just are limited. It just they can only go so far. So in my case, I think people come to a serious spiritual life in one of 2 ways. They either top out or bottom out. And I think in my case there was a little of both. I lost a very, very close friend of mine to suicide, very sudden. And it kind of provoked a bit of a midlife crisis for me. I was in my late 40s at the time, and was in the middle of a career and all of that, and just realized that everything's a bit tenuous. That the rug can get pulled out from underneath you at any time. So that was my bottom out part, and then my top out part was I accomplished pretty much everything I set out to do in life. At the age of about 45, I had reached, what I wanted to do in the academic world, in my profession. I had families, I had raised kids, and then I started searching for happiness in things like in surfing and motorcycling, and I took pilot lessons for a while, thinking maybe I'll be a bush pilot in Alaska. I thought that might work out. And nothing was really working, so, topping out, I had everything, I got everything that I kind of set out to get, and that kind of what was on offer in the modern society, money, things, entertainment, and it just wasn't enough for me. I wasn't really happy. I wasn't, in that kind of deep-seated way. So then I got serious about an alternative, and I think for me the spiritual life is the only alternative nowadays. You know, in the old days, not so far back, there used to be at least two kind of secular ideologies on offer in the world, communism and capitalism, but now it's just one. And so the only alternative to consumer capitalism really is a spiritual life. And so I gravitated to it, and I started a serious study of it, and it works. It brings the happiness that it promises, unlike consumer capitalism, which doesn't work. It just marches out new consumer goods all the time. And actually, Robin, if you look into it, at the heart and soul of the capitalist ideology that we live under is dissatisfaction, keeping us dissatisfied all the time, because that's what keeps the economy going. We have to buy more and more and more all the time. And so, if you think that, that kind of ideology is your friend somehow, I think, you're mistaken. That they have it in their interest to keep us unhappy, so that we keep buying stuff. So, I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but that's how I came about to my spiritual life, I think.
Well, speaking about spiritual life, as the spiritual renegade guides to the good life, may I ask how you came about beginning to write this book? What's your inspiration behind this?
Well, I've been teaching the material in that book for the past 12 years, and so really it's a summary of the kind of essence of what I've been teaching, in public forums and with my students in places around the world now, and it kind of summarizes, kind of what I learned from my own teachers about how to live a happy life, and so, it's been a work in progress, I'd say. I started writing the book maybe 3-4 years ago, but I've been working on the book in the sense of trying to articulate in my own mind and to those who are interested in listening, what I've gleaned from my own training, from my own teachers, and from really a lifetime of learning. So, yeah, it's kind of a summary.
What are your views for the people in the world, especially in Singapore? We have a population of over 7 billion people right now today.
Not all in Singapore, though.
Well, yes, and
it seems like it sometimes.
and people wonder, how could everyone have a good life when you have the rich and the poor, and you have extreme, diverse societies that's been divided by wealth.
Yeah.
Is there any advice you could give?
Yeah. Well, I think, having a certain level of material prosperity is necessary for spiritual life. I just think that it's almost impossible to get, very deep into, contemplation, meditation, into, thinking about how to live a good ethical life if you're living on $2 a day or less and, on the pavements of Mumbai or something like that. That's very, very difficult, very difficult. So, the spiritual life is a luxury in a way, and is a condition of possibility for people who have achieved a certain kind of level of material prosperity. And then, of course, as part of the spiritual life, we're encouraged, to share our material prosperity with others. This is, from a karmic point of view, this is how you got material prosperity in the first place. You've been giving. Giving is the karma for receiving. Giving is the karma for getting back. And so, those of us who have enough, who've achieved this kind of level of material prosperity, have an obligation, it seems to me, not just for ourselves in order to keep it going. That's how we will keep it going, is by sharing. But of course, we also have an obligation to our fellow, citizens, our fellow human beings, to try to, see to it that nobody, has to live in these kind of terrible, poverty conditions where, you just don't have a chance really to put your mind to the higher things because you're so consumed with survival. So it's a human right, I think, to have this kind of basic level of prosperity, and the inequalities have to be, that's a very serious problem. We have to rectify them. And it's in our interest to do so, you see. It's in our interest to do so. As prosperous people, number one, if we're interested in keeping our own prosperity going, and number two, I think there was a song, there was a sort of a rock and roll song a while ago, none of us is free when some of us are in chains. It's Solomon Burke, I think, or somebody like that, yeah. We can't really be happy knowing that other people are unhappy. So, you know, if we're going to perfect our happiness, if we're going to get true happiness, deep-seated happiness, we have an obligation to try to make other people happy also, bring happiness to others also.
How can countries like Singapore, even viewers from the Grand Hyatt, can find happiness? I mean, you have come out with this book, a spiritual renegade's guide to a good life, and really, what sort of life lessons could you impart?
Well, I think the book is structured around the three times. There are three times. There's past, present, and future. That kind of summarizes everything, temporally anyway. And so the book is structured around those three times. Happiness will come by fixing the past, by changing the past, by gaining trust in the future, and by learning how to live happily in the present. So, a lot of people don't think that they can change their past. They think, well, the past has happened, and it's done. And in a way, of course, that's true. The past is done. The past is over. But what we call the past is carried around in part of our present mind. In what we call memories and so forth. And memories change all the time. So it's not a matter of can you change the past. We do change the past all the time. There is no history except for revisionist history. It's always being revised. Both at a public level, if you go to the universities and ask them if they're teaching the same history now as they were 20 years ago, of course they would say, no, of course not. History changes. Our understanding of history changes, and that's true with individuals too. So we can change the past, but we have to learn how to change the past we can and do change the past, but we have to learn how to change the past in a way that's beneficial to us in terms of our happiness. So, I can summarize that in two words: forgiveness and gratitude. We forgive all people who hurt us, unilaterally and preemptively. We just drop it because the only person that we're hurting by not forgiving is ourselves. It's destructive of our present happiness by holding these grudges in our heads. And then once we've done that, then we can learn to be grateful for the things that have happened in our lives, everything that's happened to our lives. And then for the future, we can we change the future? Of course we can change the future. We're in the process of changing the future in every moment because of, the law of cause and effect of what we call karma. So it's just a matter of learning how to manipulate your present actions in such a way that you're ensuring a happier future. And you don't have to worry about the future. You can trust the future. If you're living a good life in the present, you can trust the future. I mean, all the spiritual traditions have said that. And, we just kind of don't believe it. We're just, it's not that we haven't heard it. What goes around comes around. You shall reap what you sow. The whole, you hear it in so many different expressions, but it all comes down to the same message, What you do in the present will affect your future. So if you want to have a sort of peace of mind about your future, pay attention to your present. And then the present's an interesting thing because a lot of people think that we almost all of us go through life thinking that we can change the present in the present. That's what we're trying to do all the time. Is try something happens, we try to manipulate it in such a way that it works out for us. And it's an interesting truism about cause and effect, karma, that you can't change the present in the present. The present is a perfect expression of past causes. And once those causes have come into fruition, you can't just say, oh, I didn't want that, Go back into the ground. We planted the seed, we gave it water, sunlight, and all like that, then it pops up into a flower of some sort, and once it's kind of come up, there's nothing you can do about it. You can say, oh, that's a nice flower. You can say, I wish I had planted a different seed. So the advice on the present is kind of complicated, more complicated actually than about the past and the future in terms of happiness. On one level, how to be happy about the present is to relax. If you can't change it, then what's the point of being upset about it? This is kind of a quotation from one of the great scriptures of the Buddhist tradition, the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. If there's something you can do about it, don't get upset. If there's something you can do about it, just do it. There's no point in getting upset. And there is something we can do about our past and about our future. And then the second part of the verse is, and if there's nothing you can do about it, what's the point of getting upset? Just relax already. Stop, the phrase that I coined kind of is, stop honking your horn in gridlock. In Singapore I see that you have some traffic problems sometimes. Gridlock means the cars aren't moving, right? You have that expression here, gridlock? What's the point of honking your horn, in gridlock? Like, that's not going to change the traffic pattern, right? It's not going to, all of a sudden, people aren't going to, look back, oh, we didn't know you were back there, and get out of your way or something. And getting upset about anything that happens in the present is like honking your horn in gridlock. It doesn't change it. And it just makes it worse for you to be upset about it, you see? If you can't change it, relax already. and then it will kind of change. You see what I mean? If you're relaxed about something that you can't change, then your experience of it has changed it in a way. Your experience of it has changed. Yeah.
You spoke about the subject on forgiveness and gratitude, and the world really wish there's more of Nelson Mandela's, which he has confessed that and spoke about forgiveness in his previous movie, Evictus, And what is your revelation and trends about forgiveness and gratitude? Do you think world leaders around the world, even the present generation and the future generation, recognize the need for forgiveness and gratitude?
Well, world leaders are just like anyone else. We're all human beings. I think at some level we all do recognize the need for forgiveness. We know that we should do it. We know that we should do it, but we really don't want to do it. And that's not just with some world leaders. All of us are like that. I've given many talks to audiences on forgiveness, and you can read the body language. You can, I've had people walk out on talks because I'm not going to do this. I don't want to forgive. They hurt me. They upset me. They did this or that to me. And so it's very important, I think, as we're, as we analyze forgiveness, to recognize what it is and what it isn't. Forgiveness is not forgetting. You don't just sort of like, somehow erase what has happened, to you. So forgiveness is not condoling it. What's that word? Condoning. English is kind of my second language. Yeah, it's not condoning it. It's not saying that was okay. It's not okay to hurt other people, and other people maybe have hurt you. But forgiveness is not really for them. It's not for the oppressor. It's not for the person who hurt you. It's for you. You see. So the image that I've used in the book, not forgiving is like holding on to a burning coal in your hand. And going, ow, I hurt. I wonder what I should do. And well, you have to let go of the coal. And we go, no, not my coal. I've always had my coal. And somehow if I let go of the coal, then the other person will kind of get away with it or be excused or something like that. And that's just illogical thinking. Someone once said that not forgiving is like drinking poison. Not forgiving is like drinking poison and hoping that the other person dies. The person that hurt you, It's just hurting you by not forgiving. So we have to get clear on that, because if we're not clear on that, we'll never do it, because we really don't want to. Some deep-seated part of us is hell-bent against our own happiness, actually.
So you've done so for your own business connections and your family, and probably even in politics. Have you ever forgiven them?
In politics?
Yes.
I've never been in politics, actually.
But have you forgiven those people in politics, who probably may given some outlines and different policies and so forth? Because I think in Asia, politicians tend to be unforgiving, and they prosecute those who said something that may not be favorable, or implement some policies that seems to be deemed unjust to some. But has forgiveness been an issue for you
Oh, of course, in my own personal life. I mean, you know, I don't have much of a political life. I've not been involved in politics. And I think, you know, politics and states and governments and so forth, they're just made up of individuals. And we're all the same. You know, ultimately, we're all the same. We all have the same wants and fears and, you know, desires and so forth. The Dalai Lama kind of sums it up. We all just want to be happy and avoid pain. And that's the great democracy. That goes through all of us. So yes, I've struggled a great deal in my life with forgiveness, actually. You know, I've had very difficult relations with my father and other kind of people close to me, and we all have. You know, I'm not unique in this, and it's very, very difficult. We don't, like I said before, there's some large part of us that really doesn't want to do this. And, you know, so we really have to kind of counteract that almost instinctual sort of resistance to doing what we know intellectually is necessary for our own peace of mind and well-being. So we have to give, I think, you know, very, very clear on all the reasons, intellectual reasons on why it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to not just drop it, to not just let go of that burning coal, just hurting ourselves. So, like I said, in the book, you'll go through a long, long thing of what forgiveness is and what forgiveness isn't, so we can get clear on that. You know, because one of the first things that, you know, people resist is, well, you know, if I forgive them, then that somehow means that they're exonerated, or, you know, that they didn't do something, you know, harmful. And, you know, it's not like that. Of course, people do harmful things to each other, and it's not to go into some kind of denial about that. Governments also, you know, people hurt each other, and it's not to deny that. And it's not to also say it's okay to hurt each other. It's not okay. And if there's something you can do to prevent another person from hurting themselves and others, we should do that. That's part of compassion also. Compassion for the other person is to help them not hurt themselves. And people do hurt themselves by hurting others. That is hurting themselves. What goes around comes around. So, you know, it's a complex thing, but, you know, at one level, but at another level, it's very, very simple. And I'll put it, you know, as simply as possible. We will never be happy in the present unless we do the things that we need to do to clear up our past. Never. Because that's the only place that the past is. See, the only place that the past is in the present mind. So if some part of our present mind is filled with grudges and bitterness and anger and hatred, then of course we're not going to be happy in the present. Cannot be. You can't be angry and bitter and happy at the same time.
Amazing. Well, viewers at the National Critics Choice Say at Hyatt, please don't forget to look up for his book by Lama Marut, The Spiritual Renegade's Guide to a Good Life. And thank you for joining me at the National Critics Choice Online News. I'm Robin Stienberg. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome.